Hey, folks, welcome everybody to one more installment of Quarkus Insights, episode 39. And today we're going to talk about Microprofile OpenAPI with Philip. And we also have Steve with us, who is going to talk about this new cool Quarkus initiative as well. But before we get into that, let's talk real quickly about some news. What we have basically this week is Quarkus 112 was released last week, I think in the middle of last week sometime. And there are a couple themes there that are big, and then obviously there's a ton of bug fixes and minor improvements. But the big things are that now we have the fast jar. Quarkus is, let's say, uh, special packaging. What we call a fast jar is now the default, which means that you will, if you do want to if you would want to go to the new fast jar, you're going to have to change your deployment pipelines a tiny bit. Of course, you can revert to the old legacy jar packaging format. Fast jar basically it makes the application start a little faster and have a little bit of a smaller memory footprint. Then another thing that was requested by the community a lot was to have multi-part file upload support in REST Easy Reactive. So now we have that. Also, we've bumped to GraalVM 21 as the recommended version going forward for Quarkus 112. And then you can see the full change log, which there's a bunch of fixed issues. You could check that out if you'd like. And so I think we're done with our news, hopefully. And I'll hand it over to Steve, who can talk us through this new cool Quarkus initiative.
Yeah, can you flick over and I'll... Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
There we are.
So, what can I say? You like this logo. We all like this logo. Well, we're trying something different. So let's see if I can make this happen. What do you think of that one?
Nice. I like gradient.
Yeah, so what's going on? Well, you can see a few words at the bottom. So let me make it a bit bigger. Well, we're all stuck. Most of us are stuck at home. Some people are in bathrooms and cupboards. And obviously, it would be really good if we could invite you all to come and participate in Quarkus things. But we're actually thinking we'd like to come and visit you. So we are doing a world tour, virtual world tour, of course. So we have been talking to user groups and getting them signed up. And this is about half the list. And as you can see, almost every week, in some places more than once a week, we are going to be coming to a user group near you. And we're going to be running some little event. The event looks a little bit like this, in that we're doing three things. So we're going to teach you a little bit about Quarkus, for those of you who don't know what it is. We're going to do a little bit of hands-on, so we'll show some of the code demos that we've got and have people follow along. And then we'll do a live Q&A. And as you can tell, it's sort of like rock and roll themed, and that's more, I think, to do with our age than anything else. So you can notice some nice good words on the right there. Dreamed up by marketing, of course, which I think are quite cool. So there we go. That's what we're doing. Starting, in fact, Monday is the first one with Connecticut. We're going to go around and around and around this. We're coming to you, your user group. We're going to do this. We have swag. We have T-shirts with nice logos and all sorts of interesting things on. The usual sorts of things. So watch this space. And if you want to know more, then carry on looking at the Quarkus IoT Twitter handle. Or, of course, reach out to me if you can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn and ask questions. But we'll be publishing more details shortly. And that's it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love the rock metal theme. The whole theme has to it great.
Yeah.
And hopefully before in 2022 we can make this in person or events. Who knows?
Well, maybe even 2021.
That'd be awesome. I mean, I'd love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, cool. So everybody keep a lookout for that. Quarkus.io on Twitter. More details coming soon.
Yep.
Excellent. So, should we hand it over to Philip? I know he has a ton of stuff to
Yep.
show us today. Oh, and obviously, anybody who has any questions about it, what Steve said or what Philip is going to say, obviously, ask away in chat, and we'll try to get to everything you post to us.
Yeah.
Okay. So I, when I prepared for this talk, I've drawn up this mind map mostly for myself, but then I thought I'll just use this as the agenda. So I'm not sure if we're going to get through everything, but if there's something that you want to see, then also put it in the comments, and then I can kind of focus on that part. I will basically start off with just the basics, a JAX-RS application, a plain one, and then we'll look at how we can make it better with annotations and all sorts of other things. And then we'll go over to other frameworks like Spring and Vertex. And then we'll look a little bit about on how you secure these endpoints. And then if there's time, we can look at Swagger UI and what options you have in Swagger UI and how to brand your Swagger UI and so on. Okay. So I'm starting off, by the way, I've got two applications. Both is going to be available, or both is available on GitHub. This is the first one, so you can just go to OpenAPI example under my.
Philip, just before you continue, can you make your browser window bigger and the IDE a little bigger, because it's kind of hard for people to read.
Now it just okay. So the address didn't go bigger. But you can see, you can find it under my name and OpenAPI example, or the security one will be OpenAPI security example. So we're going to basically go through both of those. And then here we can make it bigger. Let's see. Come on. Why is it not going bigger?
Yay.
No, now I'm just pasting. Hold on. Is this big enough or not yet? If I do this,
just a little. I think a little bigger will be helpful for people.
Like that.
Maybe just one more, I think, would be perfect. Yeah, I think this should be good.
Okay, so I'm starting off. So I assume most people know what is REST and what is OpenAPI. But just quickly, OpenAPI is a way to describe your REST endpoint. So this is all your operations that you have, plus response types and values that you can expect, and parameters that you should provide, and security that you should provide, and all the things that goes hand in hand with documenting your endpoint. So you don't have to do anything, and by default, you will already have some documentation if you just include the OpenAPI module in your POM file. So what I have here is a basic JAX-RS REST endpoint. It has a get operation on hello, a post on hello, and a delete on hello, and a message. So now I haven't added any OpenAPI yet, but already, I just want to see if this is running. I'll just start it in dev mode. I should have started before I started, but by now I should already have at least a default. Just hold on. Why is Quarkus so slow? Okay, so
it seemed like Maven was slow there, actually.
Yeah. I'm just teasing. Okay, so now you already have a default Swagger UI and a default OpenAPI document. Now, a lot of this has been generated off the method signatures that we could see, right? So stuff that we couldn't see, we just put default values in, like generated API and a version. But by just including the value in the POM file, I already have starting to document my schema, and you can see the object that I can expect is a greeting as well. So what we want to do now is we want to enhance this to make it actually useful for people to use. So we'll start off with you can add a tag. So you can see here And this is just called default, right? And you want to actually group your endpoints or your operations together, and you can do that by adding a tag. So we'll just add a tag here, and then we'll add some operation information here. So you can, I'll show you where this comes in. So the operation, this is the operations, and at the moment it just shows you the actual path. It doesn't give you anything more. But you can put in a description or a summary. Just to add a bit more detail on what the user can expect, right? So already now this should look better. So actually let's show this along. So you can see my tag is in there, and my summary and my description is in my endpoint. So I can already describe it a bit more. Typically what you want to do in something like this is to describe what values can be expected as a response, or what values should be provided. Now we can obviously look at greeting and see that this is a schema type that should be that is the response, and we will create that greeting object in the OpenAPI document. But you can enhance that both by adding what other types you can expect. Like in this case, I can expect a 201 and accept it, which we wouldn't have known, or a 401 if the user is not authorized, if we add security around this. So other types that we can't detect from the method signature, you can then add in here. And then you can describe your greeting a bit more, or your object a bit more. Now, you'll see that it's called schema, and that actually comes from the fact that this comes from JSON schema. So if we go back here, there's a specification called JSON schema. Now, at the moment, OpenAPI and JSON schema is kind of the same, or they use the JSON schema to define your objects, your plain old objects that you respond with or you use as parameters. It's not totally aligned at the moment, but in the latest version of both OpenAPI and JSON schema, it's more aligned. So you can see the OpenAPI specification here. So all the stuff that you have in annotations is actually documented here very nicely. So if we go to tag as an example, you can see name, description, and external docs. You can find all the documentation there, but for something like your response objects, you would go and see what you can do in the JSON schema. And that's why it's called schema here. But I can, for instance, change the name. So otherwise we will use greeting as the name, but I can say, well, make it greet, and I can do something like this to change this property name, or I can use schema again here to rename this field, or I can hide a field, and you can do all sorts of stuff with your Pojo. So this already should now change this a little bit. So you can see that became greet, the message rather than message. And my delete us is hidden. Yeah, so I wanted to show hidden, but yeah, so you can hide it, but you can also unhide it, obviously. And then the delete should pop up, and it should also tell me what other responses I can accept. And you can.
So this is what the OpenAPI folks would call like the code first type approach, right? Where you first you do all your changes in code, and then those are reflected onto the actual schema, right?
Yeah, and I'll get a little bit about to a point where I can show you how you can merge a schema, an existing schema, with this, or just use the existing schema. Okay. So far so good. You can basically document your REST endpoints. One of the things that typically you use this response for is for exception, not the normal flow of events, the exceptional case. So you can also do something like this in JAX-RS. We have a way to map an exception. So as an example, we have this greeting exist already exception.
You make this a little bigger too, because I think it was only the initial source that got.
I should find how to do this properly. There we go. Okay.
Oh, looks good.
Okay, so this is just an exception. You can see here when I do a post, I throw this exception. So in JAX.RS, what I will typically do is to have this mapper that says map this exception, and then I actually go to response. And in this case, let's say my example, I'm going to map to a 412. I'm going to add a reason header that this greeting exists already. So you can also add here, because this is actually where this response belongs. You can add the response object here, which will now automatically add that to that signature. So if we go here, we should see the 412 now, which is a bit cleaner than just adding it here, because this can become quite verbose if you start documenting every single aspect of this.
Okay, so you actually added the API response on the exception mapper itself. So OpenAPI was smart enough to know that the control flow can go there. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I just want to go back to my. So what I wanted to show next is up until now, we've basically generated the OpenAPI document or schema from the code signatures and the annotations and a combination of those. But it could be a scenario where you either want to enhance what's been generated, or you have a piece of code that comes with a document that you can't change the code to add annotations. So you just want to include that document, or you only have one document, so you don't want us to scan at all. So you can, in your meta-inf, you can include, I'm just going to rename this to OpenAPI, you can include a document. And what we will do now is we will merge this document with the one that we generated. And if there's keys that overlap, like this one, for instance, this should be the one, because this is after we've scanned. We actually then take this one and overlay it. So in my case, what I've done is I've actually have a servlet, which obviously isn't a JAX. Oh, sorry. You're going to have to remind me every time. I have a servlet, which obviously is not JAX.RS, so the spec doesn't cover that. But in the end, it's an endpoint on HTTP. And so I want this to pop up in my OpenAPI document. So what I've done is I've just basically created what should be there inside a document here. Right. So if I go back now here, I now have other resources, which is my server resource, and an error. I think what happened, and this is the danger of doing something like this, is because it's not in the code, it gets out of sync. So I changed stuff in the code, and then obviously didn't update my my OpenAPI doc. But it's because of greed. Yeah. Okay. So actually that's actually fixable. We've broken it just now in the demo. So if I actually take that out, that should fix it. But that actually highlights the problem with this, right? So so anyway, now it's fixed. So, but that's one way, and it doesn't have to be like new operations that you add. It could be you want to add this, or you want to add the security, or you want to add whatever you want to add to the document. You can provide as a static document.
Cool. So yeah, you just add like little snippets, and those get merged into the annotations. That's cool.
Yeah. The problem with that is it's not dynamic. It still happens just after we've scanned, and we scan on build time or on deploy time, not on runtime. So it can't be dynamic. You can't look at something dynamically to add it in there. But there's a way to do that, which I'll get to.
Before you do that, we have a question.
Yep.
And the question says, are JAX.RS sub-resource locators supported with OpenAPI?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't used them that much. Like some people find them useful. I don't know, but I haven't used them much. So I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't work because it is sort of an edge case. But yeah, that'd be something we should check out. And
yeah, I mean, if it doesn't work, then let's add an issue on smaller OpenAPI, and then
Right.
see if we can add it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, so the other way to enhance the document, which you can now do at runtime, is to use a filter. Now, a filter allows you, it's basically, that executes, like I said, on runtime in our case, but it also, according to the spec, executes last. So it will first scan the annotations, then merge in your static document, and then run all the filters. And a filter basically, here's an example of a filter. You basically implement this filter, and then you have hooks. Come on. Sorry. So now you have a hook into actually various places as we generate the document. This is the root filter OpenAPI. So in my case, I'm just hooking onto the root, and when we create this, I'm adding my own object, which is something that I create, and this I can now do dynamically and at runtime. So if I do this now, to activate your filter, you need this part here. Oh, let me just uncomment it. So this just tells Microprofile where this filter is. So this is according to the spec, right, this key. So now my filter should kick in, and I should see a new schema type, which I've now created, my own object, right? But this is just one example what you can do. You can add a schema type, you can add security. I'm going to show the security example, how I dynamically add security type stuff. You can do whatever. You have full access to the model that we generate. So that's possibly the better way to do it, because you're also not going to get into a situation where out of sync like I was just now with the greeting. Okay, then the other way to generate is to use the Maven plugin. So you can also generate this like this, right? And now I have access to all sorts of information. Like this will be the title in my generated one, rather than what was the one that we used there? Generated API, right? It will now say generated from Maven. And so if you build, this will come up in target generated, and yeah.
So does this generate the whole thing or just a snippet?
No, the whole thing.
Oh,
and then it will run your filter as well. It will run your filter during build now. So if you're doing some dynamic stuff in your filter, that might not work. But it's another way to generate this API, and then you can either then include it as a static document or merge it or whatever.
But with Quarkus, doesn't the YAML get generated at build time anyway? I mean, even if you don't use the plugin.
Yeah. So what people use this for a lot of the time is to do kind of source control or version control on the API document, because if we generate it, then it's available. And in Quarkus, you can actually have another flag that just save the one that Quarkus generated, which depending on what you've done in your Maven plugin could look a bit different. Now, back here, let me go back here. So in Quarkus, we don't need an application config, but you can also add an application config like this. And then you can add all sorts of other metadata around your API, like the title and the version and the developer. And servers you can actually do with config as well, but you can also add it in here. So this should change this value, this kind of header value here. Right. So now it looks a bit different, and you have different servers that you can execute against. Because Quarkus allows you to create a JAX-RS endpoint without having to have this application config. We've actually allowed you to do this in config. So I'll just remove this again. And what we'll do in our config is adding it here. And what's nice about doing it in your config is you also now have the option to have different values for different profiles, right? So in my case, I have this. The title will always be that, but I have a def and test indicator. So I always know when I hit Swagger UI which environment I'm testing against, right? So this should change it to that, right?
Nice.
Okay, so that is at this point the only stuff you can put in config. As I was preparing this, I realized that we actually need to allow you to do your security in here as well. And once I get to the security example, I'll show why I think that's needed. Where are we now? Okay, I wanted to actually show this health example as well. So I've shown you how you can do your own filter to enhance your API, this one here. We actually use it under the covers as well if we want to enhance your API with things like the health endpoints. So you can do something like this, where you say if you have health extension as well, then you can say, well, also include the API endpoints for health. And under the covers, the health has got a filter, which will now create the endpoints, because the actual health endpoints isn't JAX-RS endpoints, but it's HTTP.
Can you make this a little bigger? Because
yep.
yeah, there's a lot of text here.
Yeah, so we're looking at this part here now, right?
Okay, so basically what you're saying here is that OpenAPI will in Quarkus, OpenAPI will integrate with the other various extensions we have that provide like extra endpoints, right?
Yeah, so any extension can provide a filter. At this point, I only know about two: the health one, and in Quarkus, the logger UI.
Okay.
Provides one. But what that gives you then is here. So now my health endpoints is actually exposed here, so I can actually check my health from here. Even though this is not a JAX-RS endpoint, it's an HTTP endpoint. So basically what we're doing is
we might want to make this window a little bigger as well, because
okay, let's see.
Yeah, some of the smaller stuff is a little difficult to read. Yeah, that should be good.
Better?
Yeah, it looks like a tablet now. Good.
Can definitely read it now.
What's that, Steve?
Can definitely read it now.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is again just a filter. So basically, we run all the filters that we find on deploy time. We basically go on runtime. We find all the filters and we run them. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to show with regards to the basics of JAX-RS. Then what we've done.
One more question, if I may, with JAX-RS. I suppose this works with both REST-easy and REST-easy reactive, right?
Yeah, I don't have a demo of the reactive part because I haven't updated my demo yet, but it's supposed to work exactly the same. What we do have is Vertex routes, which I'll show, which I think was kind of a pre-runner for REST-easy reactive.
Yes.
But the difference is that REST-easy reactive is actually just hooking into. We have different scanners in small rise. So we have a JAX-RS scanner and a Spring scanner and a Vertex route scanner. The JAX-RS REST-easy reactive one just uses we just had to enhance the JAX-RS scanner.
Right. Yes, correct. Emmanuel has a question, which is sort of unrelated to OpenAPI. He's asking, what mind map software are you using?
The first one that I found that was free on the internet. So I'm not really sure what it was. It was just, I didn't have to sign up and it was free. And I actually didn't think I'm going to use it in the presentation. I was just to organize my own thoughts. So this is, I don't know, app.mindmap.com. It's working pretty well.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. So next, I wanted to show that we in course because we allow you to also develop REST endpoints using Spring and Vertex route. We also want to support OpenAPI for those. So they actually work exactly the same. So you'll see here's my Spring. I'm just going to uncomment this. Bigger. Yes, sorry. And I'll get to that. So this is a Spring endpoint, fairly basic, very similar to the one that I have. So if I And again, if I don't have any OpenAPI like this tag, it will still find and give you the basics, but you can enhance it with any of the OpenAPI annotations.
Right.
So this should now give me Spring resource as well, right? So now I have my Spring API in here. Very similar to the JAX-RS. The difference, one of the differences is Spring allows you to do something like this, and JAX-RS, but JAX-RS, this one is not using generics. So in JAX-RS, if you want to say response, you have to actually go and put in the API response type in the OpenAPI.
That's a thorn in our side in various ways.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm not sure if it's on the radar of JAX-RS to actually make response use generics, but this works as well. So I can actually pass and I don't have to do anything more. Where with JAX-RS, I have to here go at API response and put that in.
Yeah,
so
because there's no way of knowing what the actual type is.
Exactly, except if you actually respond with the type. But if you use response, then you have to tell us what the type is, because we can only read the annotations and the method signatures. And then similarly, Vertex, like I said, the Vertex roots will also work, right? So this is just a basic example.
Here as well.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. So a normal Vertex root, very similar. Again, you can leave it basic, or you can enhance it with OpenAPI like this, and it will be included in here. There's a Spring JAX-RS, and then there's your Vertex one, right?
So basically, any web API, any declarative web API that Quarkus supports will work with OpenAPI, right?
Yep, and the ones that don't, you can either do what I've done with this servlet one, or you can use a filter to create it manually. It's going to be a bit of code, but it's not impossible.
Right.
Right, so back here. I don't have a demo on this, but just worth mentioning, if you use Panache, and you can also tell that to create a REST endpoint automatically for you, and that will also generate the OpenAPI documents.
So Panache REST also works with OpenAPI?
Yeah.
Wow, that's nice. Yeah, so for people who don't know what Panache REST is, it's our, like, let's say, uber opinionated way of doing CRUD resources. So basically all you do is define Panache entity, you add a couple annotations on it, and automatically you'll get a CRUD HTTP API to work around it, to work with it, which you can then like extend or whatever with your own methods. But that's like the fastest way to get you running. And now I didn't know it worked with OpenAPI too, so that's awesome.
So what I'll do next is I'll show the Swagger UI options that you have, because I'm doing it on this example, and then we can start up the security example to go through the security options. So in Quarkus, you can brand this page. So this is the default branding that we have, the Swagger UI branding for Quarkus. This is already actually customized, because this comes from SmallRye, which has a SmallRye branding. So you basically override the Quarkus branding for yourself. You can override the favicon here, you can override the logo here, and then you can change any style element by providing your own CSS file. So as an example, we will change this. So you need a branding folder inside meta-inf. And then basically in there, you will provide your own logo. So we'll use this logo, your own favicon, and I'll show the styles just now. But just changing the logo here should already give us browser cache typically. Yeah, so browser cache is always an issue here. You have to shift refresh, but you can see there's my logo. Now, let's say I want to, and my favicon is there. But I want to change the CSS because I want to remove this as an example, and I want to change the scheme, the color scheme, to my corporate colors. So I can provide my own. I don't have to actually show you. You don't have to see this that well. But let me just refactor this to style.css. Right. So already now it should change a little bit. Okay, so you see I've removed in my CSS, I've removed that part there. But I actually also want to change the top bar to be a different color as an example. And maybe I want to hide this, this whole text box here because I don't want to use it all. So that will do that. But the point is basically anything you can do with CSS, you can now do here, right? So that's what I've done. I've removed all of the rest and just changed the color to, let's say this is my corporate colors. You can also
the idea with that is like that if you're like if you have a service and you want to open it up to external integrations, that you point them to this page where it's already styled and everything, so it looks like all professional and all customized, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be external even. I mean, when I worked at big banks or big insurance companies, that's every department has a brand, or where at least where I worked. So you brand it according to your department, and you share it internally with other departments. But they know exactly what what are they using at that point.
Right, gotcha.
But yeah, it could be external as well. Now you can also do a few things like if you look at this title here, at the moment it says OpenAPI powered by Quarkus. You can change that title. You can change the theme. So this is the theme here, and you can change it to something like let's do outline. You can add a footer. Okay, let me show that first. Right, so now you already see there should be a footer in there, and the theme is a bit different. So it's not that blue of Quarkus, it's like this outline theme. There's a few themes that you could use. You could obviously, again, change this with the CSS yourself as well, but because there was themes already, you could just pick one of the themes. And then, so that's pretty much from a branding point of view. Then if you go here to what is available in for Swagger UI's configuration, in a recent version, we've actually exposed all of this, which is Swagger UI's own configuration options, which you can now configure inside Quarkus itself. So there's quite a lot. I'm not going to go through all of them. But for instance, here's an interesting one. You can run a function on complete. So as the page is rendered, you can run some JavaScript function to do something if you feel like it. So this should give me a hi. Okay. You can, I'm just going to remove that because that can get quite annoying. You can do things like this where you want to only support get methods. So at the moment, you'll see the post, I can try it out, but maybe I don't want people to try it out. And I want to just switch posts off totally. Then I can say only do gets. Then I can add more URLs. So the default one is this one, but I can maybe add these ones as well. I might have to change my style to bring back my, let's see. Yeah, so now it went to the default one, which I've set to be the pet store, and I have no way to change it because I've removed it in the style. So we can just put it back quickly. Like that. Yeah, so now I have this view where I can actually change to pet store on my other one. So it's just a way to...
CSS just looks magic to me. I don't know what you're doing.
I don't know either. That's the scary part.
Very fast too.
Sorry, if I'm going too fast, sorry.
No, it's not criticism. It's just in awe.
Yeah, you just change something and magically,
yeah,
it all works. It's awesome.
Okay, so back here, what else did I want to show you? Yeah, there's obviously quite a lot of things you can do with the Swagger UI options. I'm not showing all of them, but they're all documented on Swagger UI site, and you can do quite a lot there. One of the other things that we've added to Quarkus, which is very specific to Quarkus, well, actually it's specific to SmallRye, is the ability to generate the operation ID based on the method name or the class name or the package and class name. So you can obviously do it in annotations, but because it's something that you can actually, with some strategy you can generate, we've allowed you to do it. And that's quite handy if you have clients that generates code off your OpenAPI document. But I can do something like this, and then every operation will have an ID which is equal to the method name. Now, obviously, an ID needs to be unique. So if you know it's not going to be unique, then you can use package or class to have a different strategy to create a unique ID. And you can actually also change the version if you want to. And that, again, it seems like weird that you would do that, but certain gateways, for instance, will only allow a specific version. And now we generate 303, but you want 302, right? And you can just do this because you might not be using any of the differences between 302 and 303. Okay,
so that's basically for like you said, like policies. Like at the front of some companies that works, which will only allow a certain UI. Oh, that's cool.
Some gateways only look for a specific version. They only support that. Okay, cool. I think I've shown most of this side. So the next demo is around security. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to go to my other application, which is this one. So what I have in the background running at the moment is a Keycloak instance locally, and I have a few things already set up. But in this example, I actually also show you can go here, and let's say you're interested in JWT, you can go and see how to set it up. I have a file that you can just import, and that will set up Keycloak for you. You can add some users, and then it will show you how to use it. But I'll go through that now as well. So what we'll do is we'll start off with closing all of this.
And making them bigger.
And making them bigger, exactly. I actually remember that now. Let me just do this. So I'm going to start off with starting this application. I don't have any security added to it yet, but we'll add it. I just want to show what we have as a pretend API for a company where we have some information that everybody can see. So this is public information. And then we have information like all the employees that only the employees can see. And then you have the employees with their salaries that only the boss can see. Okay. Right, so now if I go, I'm just going to actually close these two. I'll go back here and then browser cache. All right, so now I have my API, and at the moment there's no security. I can just, basically everybody can see everything. So we'll start off by adding plain old security for, without OpenAPI. I just want to secure this.
Yeah.
So I'll just say that roles allowed. And what I'm using here is not Keycloak yet. I'm just using the don't use in production version where I just have the roles and the users in files.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, just to get us going. Now, this is not enough information to tell OpenAPI what your security model is. So you also have to provide at least the scheme that you're going to use. So in our case, we'll use basic authentication. So I'll just say that this is a basic authentication, and then I give it a name, like I'm calling it company authentication. And then when I want to tell an operation what security they use, I can basically just say the security requirement here is the company authentication. So this name here maps to that name there. That allows you to actually have more than one security scheme as well, because this can be multiples. So I can do security schemes, and I can define a whole bunch of them, and then in the operation I can say which one or which set is being used by this operation. But for now we'll just do the one. So I'll just say that's my requirement, and that should be enough to go back here and browser cache. It's really a weird thing, browser cache. All right, so now I have this this authorize button, which I didn't have before, and I can now actually say, okay, I want to log in as Dilbert, and right. So now you'll see if I now do this, which I should be able to because I'm an employee, I should see all the employees, but I can't see their salaries because I'm not the boss. So I'll get a 403 as forbidden. But you will see that this is the call that's being made. So it's basically just passing in the authorization basic header, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then obviously if I log out and log in as the boss, and his password is very secure, the boss as well. Now I should see the salaries here. Right. Okay, so the rest of the examples are all going to be the same as this, except we're going to change the security model. So I'll stop this one, and then we'll start off with JWT, which I think is the most used one, or maybe I'm wrong, but that's typically what we would have used in a microservices architecture is JWT. So I've set up KeyCloak to be my provider of JWT tokens. The difference now in this application, I've remembered, to go bigger, is that I'll add this, right? Which is just, this has nothing to do with OpenAPI. This is the JWT properties that I need. Basically just say where is the public key, which is quite cool that I can just point it to the public key and the verifier, the issuer. So the difference then here is the code is exactly the same.
We have a question from Emmanuel before you move on to the JWT. He's asking, is the OpenAPI schema updated when the roles are allowed thing, meaning some methods are not visible, or are all methods visible and then you just can't execute them if you're not the right role?
The second one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not building it. And again, remember we built this. We do this at build time.
Yes.
So we don't have that information to even attempt that. I'm sure you can do it at runtime and then attempt to hide what you can't see. But at the moment, it's because the OpenAPI document is not necessarily secured, right? So I can still go to /OpenAPI and that's public because that is not necessarily sensitive. But I'll show you how you can also secure that at the end of this example.
We have another. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, but it's not impossible to build it in. We actually had that same discussion with GraphQL. It's going to be quite a lot of work though to figure that out dynamically.
Gotcha. And we have a question from Sebastian who says, really cool, but it only works if the security schema annotation is added. Couldn't we have a default implicit one?
I'll show how I add it without that a bit later, and then one of the things, like I said in the beginning, what I've realized is we need something where you can put this in config.
Right. Yes.
Because at the moment, if you want this dynamically, which typically you want, because if I show the Oauth example as you need URLs in here, and you don't want that to be in the code. If you want that dynamically at the moment, you'll use a combination of a filter and config. But what I think we should add is ability to just do that under the covers for you and look at your config. And then we add this part for you.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely reasonable, yeah.
Yeah, but at the moment, the answer is no. You need this or a filter and config.
But stay tuned and it won't be that way soon.
Yeah, exactly. So if we go... So this is the only difference between this and the basic auth is that I've changed this to be a bearer and the bearer format, right? The rest is the same. I just roles allowed and security requirement on the operations. So if I go back here, I should now see the JWT one. The difference now, obviously, is if I authorize, I now need a token. So if you go to the README, I have just copy and paste this quickly. And then I can grab my token here. and authenticate with it. So now if I do employees, that was Dilbert. So I should execute and see all of them. And again, if you look at what happened, it's basically just an authorization header with the bearer token inside there. And I still can't do salaries because I'm not the boss. So still forbidden. And if I want that, I can just change this to login as. So now I'll just get the token for the boss. Okay. I'm sure you will believe me that it's working, but let me show it anyway. So I'll log out here. And then if I execute now, I can see the salaries, right? So that's JWT. Next, I want to show, and you'll see they're all pretty much exactly the same. And that's what's nice about it. And what will be even nicer if we move the security scheme to config, because it means that you can change between schemes by changing your config, which means I can maybe have a very basic, easy to set up on localhost scheme for localhost, but change it for other profiles.
Yeah,
but OpenID,
great.
OpenID Connect is the next one. Let's close all here. So again, the difference here is basically this difference here. Now this is where the URL comes in, where this part is not necessarily something I want to put in my code because this is going to be something that changes. But I'll show you how you can do it at the moment, and that's the thing that will hopefully change. But the only difference here is then the scheme is OpenID Connect, and then I give it this URL, which is actually a setup URL. That basically sets all the other URLs that's needed. And then there's one other difference, is that I'll have to provide scopes. Now, I don't want to go into the details of scopes, but OpenID Connect is built on top of Oauth, and Oauth has this concept of scopes, which you must have seen if you've logged in with your Google. It says that the person that you allow is going to see your email, and they're going to see this, and they're going to read your mails, and they're going to send the mail. They give you the scopes that is allowed, but I'm not going to go into scopes now. So for now, I don't use that. But you have to at least put it in here. So that's one difference between this and JWT and basic Auth. But apart from that, if I run this, cool. Okay, so now this should be OpenID Connect. Yep. So if I authorize now, you'll see that it actually, because it's setting it up from the that URL, the URL tells me all the ways that it can do. Now, the one that we want to use is password. So now I can do Dilbert here. Now, it actually, under the covers, creates a JWT token. It's not a signed one like Microprofile JWT, but it does it all in one flow. I don't have to use some consult to go and get my token. It does it all here. But I can do Dilbert, and then the client ID is that's what you set up in Keycloak, right? So I've made it Quarkus OpenID Connect client, and the secret you grab off the README, but yours, if you set this up, yours will be different, obviously, because you will set up your Keycloak. And I'm not going to do scopes, but this is an example of scopes, and then I can authorize. All right, and then the normal flow will happen now, right? Now I'm Dilbert, I will see, and I won't see this. I don't know if I have to log out and log in as the boss again, but yeah, the flow is exactly the same, right? I can now log in as boss, and OpenID Connect. And you'll see in the code, there's no real change to the code. It's really just this that I change for OpenAPI and Swagger to work. Now, it's nice to have this in Swagger because it's easy to test, but the actual value lies in the fact that it's in my document, which is what I give my users so that they can understand how to authenticate. Yep. Oh, that's a good question. Let's see. There we go.
Cool.
Okay. So this is actually the part that is important, right? So the last one on this that I wanted to show was Oauth. So let me shut down this. And Oauth and OpenID Connect's flow is very similar, but the difference is that there's no JWT token in this Oauth exchange. Oauth is the one I think that most people know the best, because that's what we use, right? If I say authenticate with my Gmail or my Google account or my GitHub account, that's what I'm using under the covers. Okay, but let me show you this then. Again, the difference is really just here. And here is also now a URLs, which I don't really want in here. And I'll show you now how we can remove that. But basically just change this to Oauth and the rest is the same. So if I start this.
While this comes up, we have a question. The question is, what's going on? What are we doing about OpenAPI 3.1?
Well, that is basically the next thing that we are or should be working on with Microprofile project. Like I said in the beginning, the biggest changes there is actually the alignment of the JSON schema spec and OpenAPI. So a lot of stuff will be deprecated and changed as both of those specs work together to basically make OpenAPI use proper JSON schema specification. And then, so that needs to happen inside Microprofile OpenAPI. And then obviously subsequent to that, the small RI needs to upgrade to that. But I'm not currently actively working on that, but that is on the to-do list. That should happen next.
Awesome.
Okay, so this one is started up. So if I refresh here, it should say Oauth, right? And now the authenticate flow will be a bit different. I'll give the client ID, which is Quarkus. Let me just copy and paste it, otherwise I might get it wrong. Yeah. This is again what you set up in Keycloak or whatever your security provider is. And now I'm actually redirecting to that system, in my case Keycloak. So now I can log in as the boss and boss as an example. And I should now be able to see, well, I should see the salaries because I'm the boss. And I should see obviously the employees as well. Okay. So that's Oauth. Now, I know we're running out of time, but if possible, I want to quickly show how you can get rid of then this part here, because this is not nice, right? So we'll remove that here, and then I'm going to add a filter, which is same as the filter that I've shown in the beginning, except that what I'm doing is I'm getting the two URLs that I need from config, right? So I have my own config keys where I get these two off, and then I just add it to the generated model. And then obviously in my other dependencies in here, I need to just add my filters. Yeah, enable my filter, and then I have the two config values that I'm now dynamically going to look at. And again, this is nice because I can change the values between different profiles. But this should be enough to keep this like it is, right? So it should restart now, and it will still contain this in there. But I can now change it with config. Right.
Nice.
So like I said, I think this should be easier. I've realized it when I built this demo that this is something that's common enough that this is going to be different between environments, that we should give this filter to you. Maybe a bit more generic filter that you can set what is your security scheme and other properties you might need on there, and then we will have the filter. So that's something that I'll add to the small RI in the upcoming versions. And I think I wanted to show one last thing. It's not that important, but you can obviously, I think, as you know, you can include Swagger UI inside your distributable object, so not just in dev mode, and you might want to secure that itself and your /OpenAPI if you don't want that to be publicly available. So that's also fairly easy to do. In this example, I just again don't use in production, but just for demo purposes. But basically, this is the part.
Can we have this a little bigger?
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard to read on YouTube.
One should think that I've learned by now. So in my case, I just basically said just secure everything under /q. That could be obviously you can go specific like /q/Swagger UI. But now this is basic auth, and if I start this, you'll see that if I now want to see Swagger UI or the OpenAPI doc, then I will have to do my basic auth. And again, I have some employee, or any employee can see it. So this doesn't have to use this authentication in the background. It can use KeyCloak, but just a way to secure your web resources.
Nice.
So this should give me a basic, basic auth.
Cool.
Right? And that's me. I think I'm out of time now.
That was amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome information. Yeah, and I think judging from the comments, people really liked it. So this is awesome stuff. Super practical.
Cool. And if there's any suggestions or more questions, then please reach out. Find me somewhere on the internet, Zulip or Twitter or the issues or something, and we discuss it there.
Great. That was great to have you, and it was great to have NetBeans back. I don't think we have had anyone do NetBeans since you were on the show last.
Yeah, NetBeans is great. You should try it.
Who knows? We'll see. All right, so we're on the top of the hour, so I'll let you go. And thanks again for this demo. And again, everybody, keep an eye out for Quarkus World Tour. Steve's going to have some new information for us soon.
Yep.
So we'll see everybody soon.
See ya.
Yes, thanks.
Have a good day.